Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
Thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It means something. It means something. You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. It is a science thing. It's a science place. It's a scientific fact that we're all up in your face. It's time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. Tonight, episode 373. Got a returning guest and looking forward to talking to him. It's been a little while. How long has it been? Well, we'll get into that, but I don't think his first solo album was done when he was on this show last. So it's been a long time. So let's put it that way. But before we get into that, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I'm your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer that's been touring and recording for 24 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may or may not be household names. This is episode 373. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, archives of it are available for free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding, at protonicreversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/protonicreversal will achieve that goal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around on the internet, and even leave a review. All that helps people discover the show. It beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. It's just a darn nice thing to do. So there you go. Jay Robbins, we've talked a few times on this show over the years. And when I say over the years, I literally mean over the years. Like it's I've had him on a few times. I remember one time we talked, apparently, quote unquote, too much about the Jawbox self-titled record. People got mad about it. And it has been some years since he's actually been on the show. So I'm really excited to have him on because, first of all, we're celebrating the Basilisk, his new record, which is fantastic. But it's also, I have learned, my sources have confirmed to me, that today is the 30-year anniversary of For Your Own Special Sweetheart, which is a record that is well regarded by both society and myself. But anyway, without further ado, I am very excited to bring on Mr. Jay Robbins. Welcome, man.
Hello, hello.
Did you know that was today?
I did know. Zach Barocas he sent texts to, we have a little text group.
Yeah. And
it was his wife actually, nobody was keeping track of it, but his wife was like, you know what today is? And he was like, no. Like,
that's what no husband ever wants to hear. By the way. You know what today is? Oh crap! What is it?
Right, but yeah, no, it's nice actually. She
that's awesome.
Yeah, she sort of had a little mini celebration for him. She got some friends to send messages and stuff, and then he sort of, he woke me from my, not literally woke me from my slumber, but I was completely unaware that 30 years had passed, because that's how I remain upright. But
right. That's sitting there thinking about it every day. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a nice surprise. We all had a nice little group chat in a text.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, I was reminded by Zach as well when I was coming downstairs to do this. I was like, oh, that was today? Oh, crazy. That's kind of
Yeah.
That's kind of
it's a mixed bag. You don't want to really think that you were 30 years is a long time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, agreed. I mean, gosh, April, it's 10 years for this show. And I'm like, really? How's that possible? But then also it seems like 1,000 at the same time. You know what I mean? Like depending on the day or the episode. Some are harder than others. And then also Basilisk, man. This is awesome. Like you have a new record out. That is I was jamming Exquisite Corpse upstairs to the point that I actually forgot to turn it off. So
Nice.
so the cats are getting a little serenade there.
It's good. It's good for cats.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, it's they prefer easy listening, but they rock with it. Last time we spoke, you were putting the finishing touches on Unbecoming. So, or last time we spoke on the show, I should say.
Yeah.
Which is a record I like very much. I think I named it one of my favorites of the year, actually, if I remember correctly. Certainly listened to a lot. And then since then, I've had, I had Bill on, I had Kim on.
Oh, nice. I was not aware. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. And Kim actually busted my chops for having too much branding on the show, which, to be fair, I did because I was like, because if you go to this view, it's like, okay, so it's there 3 times. There's the background, and then there's a little like Christmas ornament in the corner. And I was like, all right, fine, I'm gonna stop doing that. So you can credit Kim Coletta for that. That she's the one that turned me around on like, all right, there's too much branding. But I think it's
you got to flood the zone. You got to. You have to.
It's move fast, break things, and constant branding. Those are the edicts. Really awesome record. Was this one easier to put together than the last one, or was it kind of about the same?
In a sense, it was easier because I had, just by virtue of having done one, and also, I mean, yeah, if I wanted to keep it simple, if I wanted to keep it to a simple answer, I would say it was easier. But, it's weird because I don't think of, like, the whole idea of putting things into chapters is something that I would do retroactively, right? Like,
right.
Like, I mean, I knew that I was working toward a second record, but I was kind of like, this is going to turn into a record when there's enough material that I'm happy with and it's coalescing, and like, you know what I mean? I sort of I just was making a lot of music and kind of every now and then stepping back and kind of letting it tell me what it wanted to turn into, you know what I mean? So, but I mean, in that way, it was easier because it's second time out in a way. And also,
right.
I kind of had more of a brief, like I kind of knew a little bit more what my objectives were. But, it also was harder in some other ways because of, I don't know if you remember the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, what's that? What's that? Oh,
yeah. I'm having trouble remembering it, but it,
that's because of the post-COVID fog.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But that sort of, obviously complicated literally everything. And so there was definitely a period in the gestation of this record that I was kind of like, well, this is just a thing I'm doing to keep myself sane, because who knows if anyone will ever hear it, but, so it was harder in the way that everything was harder for everybody. But yeah, there's my answer. that's what I got for you.
Yeah, no, but it's also, when you got something under your own name too, it's like you're not, it's not under the banner.
Right.
It's not of a band name, hanging the banner. Yeah, we're like mission accomplished, right? But it's there's a certain weight is not necessarily the right word, but like it's a different amount of stakes when it's like, oh, this is a J. Robbins record. This isn't like Office of Future Plans. This isn't like Burning Airlines.
You're not sort of subsuming yourself into this created,
container of creativity or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's all the coolness about starting a band when you're like, what are we going to call it? And then it becomes this new entity that has its own sort of energy or its own kind of identity.
Right.
And it's not about any one individual person, but I mean, I guess I didn't think too much about, it's weird too, because it's not like, I just don't take anything for granted really, except for I know I want to create things. So I would just be,
Right.
in here in my music room, demoing things and just making music. And then, imagining that I would put it out somehow, like even if it was, like I don't take for granted that Discord is going to want to put out everything that I do, because I just don't think that's, I would love it if I knew that they always would, but I just don't want to assume anything. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, maybe this will be a bunch of songs that I put out gradually on Bandcamp, or maybe it'll be this, or maybe it'll be that, and then but the idea of an album, I'm never gonna, I love albums are great. So
I am a fan of the format, and I still listen to things in the album format more, almost exclusively. And also it allows you, but when you're thinking about it in terms of, like, as you discussed, it allows you to be a little more open creatively as well. Because like, I'm thinking back even on the Unbecoming record, there's stuff that sounds like it would slot nicely on a Jawbox record or Burning Airlines record, and there's stuff that sounds like, oh, this is like he's doing it like an Eno kind of thing here. This is almost like soundscapey, kind of like dreamy kind of. There should be a nature special.
Eno, I'll take it.
Yeah, like whatever. There's worse dudes to be compared to, right?
But that's also part of the appeal of making a record that's just a J. Robbins record. It's like, if a band. It's rare that a band can sort of have that, there's only certain, the only band that comes to mind, I know there are probably plenty of other examples, but, a band like Radiohead could just somehow, have that level of flexibility and trust, and who knows what goes on behind the scenes. But it seems like that's a band where everybody is game for anything, and people can bring things and they can sort of stretch out into whatever territory they want. And yet it still retains their, that it's them.
Right.
And, but for the majority of bands, it's like whatever it might be like for them. In my experience of bands, it's like people can have such differing perspectives that, it can become a real negotiation, a real, just like, it can't encompass everything that you necessarily want to do. And so that's part of the appeal for me, is just like, I want to do what I want to do. I have too much, my imagination's too restless, and I'm too curious about trying different kinds of things. So that's,
yeah, you don't have to get it past Congress necessarily.
Right. Exactly. Well said. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Nice.
Well, and again, that's sort of the double-edged sword of a collaborative environment, is that you have collaborators, and those people are maybe going to have ideas, and maybe, some things will get over and some won't. But then if you're doing something where you're just taking the limits off, then the downside is that you have to trust yourself to be like, well, is this what I want it to be? Right, you don't have as much of a sounding board necessarily, but
right. But I think that's where. It's not as if I don't have collaborators. It's just,
sure, but
right. So I trust them implicitly, know. But I think that the feeling is like, my thing is like, if I'm coming up with ideas, I almost immediately hear a whole song sort of in my head, or even if it's just a section, I don't just hear it on the guitar. I kind of hear all the instruments in at least in enough of a form. And then I'm like, one little bit is like, what good is that? It's about how it fits into a bigger picture and the whole arc of the thing. Right. And so like, and that's all that shit is what I get fired up about. So it makes sense to me to like flesh all that out to the degree that I can then show it to Brooks and Darren or Brooks and Pete, Moffat in the case of Unbecoming,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of say, here's the roadmap, but now we'll let's see about what kind of detours you want to put in, because I that's part of it too, always like the thing that the other people add that you didn't quite expect,
Right.
If you are collaborating with the right people, if that chemistry is good, then you're really in it, then you're really in the sweet spot.
You're going to get something that is crazier or more cool than like you even would have thought of yourself, just as from a natural instinct of working with talented people.
Right, but within the context of you have an overall view of the journey, right? Like instead of setting out, upriver with your three compatriots to destinations unknown,
Hearts of Darkness style.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And like, so, and that can be really cool too, but I mean, sometimes not. And anyway,
well, do you think that it feels like that mindset might be easier as someone that records music as well, that, you have to have the bigger picture in mind when you're recording a band, even if, it's not necessarily fully articulated from the beginning. You have to be thinking about the bigger picture. And I mean, it's all very composed, like, but it doesn't sound composed, but it's the band sounds great. And now actually having seen you play, I was lucky enough to see you play, was it last year? Right. Yeah. And really enjoyed it. And awesome. Was pulling on the coat to anyone that was listening. It was like, hey, gotta get that Unbecoming record. It's really good. To the point that people were like, yeah, we get it. We should get that record. Okay, cool.
I appreciate that. Wow. But
I was also being served liberally, so let's put it that way. But but I think that it sounds band-like in the ways that are good, right? Like that it sounds there's a certain austere nature to some records that are just like, oh, you were at your computer when you made this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I don't want to denigrate it necessarily, because some of that music is wonderful, but it there's a liveliness to both the records that feel like people playing in a room.
Well, cool, because it should. I mean, that is to some degree. It definitely, both records were. Although that's the difference probably between the two of them, is the first one there wasn't as much like get the band together and make a and do a session and walk away with a song kind of thing. Right. There was a lot more bring my demo with my scratch guitars, and Pete will put down drums, and then Brooks will do the bass, and then we'll, then I'll take it home, and then I'll be like, oh shit, that guitar texture wasn't working. I better go re-record it, or maybe the bridge should be twice as long, or blah, blah, like kind of real, like, and it was fun. It was a fun, great construction project, but it was a super long arc. And kind of, I mean, whatever. It was super cool. And I'm not down on the assembly project school of record making either. I think there's, all sorts of ways to skin a cat. So that record came together the way that it was supposed to, and I was super happy with it at the end of it. But I also was really wishing for, especially when I would go back and be tracking guitars and be like, like focusing on all these details about performance and stuff. That's just like, I mean, I could do it for hours and hours with somebody else as the engineer. I'm perfectly happy to like break it down and get microscopic. But when it's just me, and I'm like fucking up the same part over and over again, and then finally I nail it, and then a week later I'm like, it sounds terrible. That's not the right sound, and I'm gonna go redo it again. Like, it was just like, fine, it's cool, it's all the process, it's great, turned out fine. But at the end of it all, I was like, what about the band knows the song before you hit record completely, and you're not counting on having layers of different parts, you sort of writing with the intention of this is a big thing for me. Like, I hate doubling my own guitars because I just hear all my inconsistencies. And I'm just like, this is a time suck. Like, you wouldn't believe, like, because all you're doing is repeating the same task in order to make it sound normal to your ears. Like, doubled guitars sound right. You know what I mean? Like, they sound great. So, but I'm just like, there, down we go into the time vortex of like, oh, I'm not quite in tune as I was, or all that, whatever. Like, so I was like, next time I go in the studio with a bunch of new songs, I'm going to really know musically beforehand, everything's going to be worked out. And I'm going to do it with the band in the room, record it. And at the end of that session, that is what it is. I'm not doubling guitars. I'm not, retracking, layering everything. I'm not going to decide that the bridge needs to be twice as long. All that stuff's going to be it's going to be like old school. And cause I was thinking about like those, Frank Black and the Catholics records.
Oh yeah.
That are all live to 2-track.
Live to 2-track. Sure. Yeah.
Right. And they're fucking amazing. And the energy of those records is just like, or Fugazi. Two Fugazis have always like a guiding light.
Yeah.
Like there's a band that, they took their record making very seriously, but all the performances, all those records are a band playing the song.
Right.
They really
and it sounds
are.
like that. It's not like it doesn't sound like a Stu Proj, it doesn't sound like Studio Project. It sounds like a band playing in a room.
Yeah. So I sort of had that in my mind. I was just like, I want to reduce the opportunities for me to get in my own head and like hate the way I play guitar and decide that I, just like turn into a second guessing nightmare. So that was a big goal for me. And then COVID kind of dropped a bomb on the idea that we would rehearse and, work things out that way. But it meant that I kept demoing a lot more. So then eventually all the pressure just kind of built up of being stuck inside. And I called Brooks and Darren, particularly because he's local to me. He's my dear friend. I think he's a genius. And we've made a bunch of records together, like in Report Suspicious Activity, the band that we did with Vic Bondi, where we literally did this thing of nobody could practice. Vic just sent demos and we'd show up and, we'd have 2 or 3 days and just learn songs on the spot and drill them till we really felt like we had them in our hands, and then just hit record and there it is. It's done. And that was a super fun way. Like the Report Suspicious records were like a fucking total blast to make.
Right.
So, so this is a one, thing where I was like, I know it'd be great to do that with this record. We're sort of forced to do it because of the pandemic, but also it's kind of a cool, like the energy of that way is really cool. So just be in it. And then at the end of 2 days, what you got is what you got. And, so that's what we did. We all sort of tested for a couple of days and we were sure we weren't going to get each other sick. And then because that was it's weird. Like you sort of,
it's
blurs
a factor.
Back, it blurs into, the distance thinking about that time, but it was a shitty time when everybody was worried about that kind of stuff.
First time we recorded, it was like, all right, I guess we'll just be masked the entire time. I'll be in this room, you'll be in that, and it felt strange. But it was like, hey, there's people, everyone's got folks
the
in their
stakes
life
seem incredibly high.
Yeah, because even if it's not you, there's people in your life that are immunocompromised or at risk, where it's like, and so it's the idea of like, oh, you're kind of rolling the dice to do the thing that you love, so you have to be really careful about it. It's crazy to think about now because people are sort of taking it for granted, but though that really hasn't changed. Just something we decided collectively that we're just going to live with.
Right, exactly. It's I'm chewing that over and over again every day, thinking about that very thing.
I have to put it away often because I get too mad about it. But then it's like, well, okay, that's and then people, I didn't make that decision. No, I said collectively. That includes all the people you don't like too.
On the plus side, we are doing the things that make life worth living.
Right.
So
precisely.
that's cool.
So
but
you find a way. You find a way to do it, but especially those first kind of soft foot forward moments of like, okay, can we find a way to do this that maintains this the way it needs to be, but doesn't literally put people's lives on the line? Crazy.
But so So that was basically the first session we did, which was in 2021, for March of 2021, was a case of, okay, you think we can do this? And then we did it. And once we were actually in the studio, being in the same physical space with, my dear friends who I love to play music with, and like working on this thing and just throwing ourselves into it, it was super, super fun. I think Brooks and Darren and I really rode this wave that was, it just felt fucking amazing. And then the songs all came, that was like probably a 5 or 6 song batch that all came together.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, it came together. We did it to 2-inch tape. And then we would work up a song, work up the details, drill it till it was kind of in everybody's hands, and then do takes. And I worked out this kind of stereo guitar amp thing. So basically at the end of that session, like what you hear on the record, like Exquisite Corpse, that's us playing that song live at that day.
Nice. There's
no redoing the guitar. There's no
you just have it bi-amped and have each amp mic'd at the same time.
Yeah. And that's just what, there's some other wackiness in there to make it feel, because it feels pretty. I was really happy with the guitar sound, that it feels, as kind of thick and
sounds great.
And kind of big as I wanted it to. But yeah, so just that's, so there's a few songs, there's not quite half the record that is like that. And then the other half of the record is sort of also a pandemic byproduct, not a pandemic byproduct, but, like I'm in here in my little music room and wanting to do more
mad scientist in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Electronic, ambient kind of texture-y things. So, and then it's like developing those kind of like 2 different kinds of songs and writing more and more in both those different veins, and then trying to figure out how to make the pieces fit so it feels like the same record,
Well, that's the key, is that I feel like it does slot together nicely. It doesn't sound like, oh, that's when they were in a room and that's where it was all more studio stuff. Like it feels cohesive.
Awesome. Because I agonized about that was the hardest part, was just thinking like, what the fuck am I even doing? Like, who am I trying to be?
Which, like, not even everyone even cares about that anymore, really. But like, as someone who listens to records, I do care about that, and it's not that it would be bad. It would just be like, oh, that's jarring, but okay, I've heard records like that are fantastic, and
right.
the dichotomy.
Well, no, right.
Sometimes
like a really schizophrenic record is like just amazing. Like the more schizophrenic it is, the more you're like, holy shit, it just has this dimension or whatever.
Red Medicine, right? That's a great example of like they have all the kind of like sort of. Almost said low res.
Those are some of my favorite Fugazi moments, actually.
Yeah, where it's this sort of like it's crazy because it sounds like it's coming from the next room over or something almost, because it's just on a
like a weird, gritty,
mic.
abstract soundscape, and you're like, that's a band making that sound. Like I don't even know what, like some weird machinery,
There's a bunch of Thinking Fellows Union stuff like that too, and I think of that. 6-finger satellite, pigeon's the most popular bird, all those interstitials and stuff. But like, that's almost an aesthetic in and of itself, which is great. But it's interesting that so Darren, obviously, Kerosene 454 is who I originally know him from, Channels, obviously Future Plans, et cetera, et cetera. But like, how did Brooks enter your orbit? Because Brooks, for people, because this is how long it's been since we talked. Last time we talked, Bill was not only still in Jawbox, but I had yet to see the Impartial Overview tour, which, by the way, I saw the day after I played a really demoralizing show out of town. And your show was great and put me in a good mood, because I was in a foul mood for that reason.
Oh, wow.
But that was a really cool tour, because I felt like there was like the energy of the crowd and also like the band, like it was just spot on, fantastic. Awesome. But I have yet to see you guys with Brooks playing, who I'll confess, like I didn't know anything about him. So I was
Brooks
like, who's
is
this
awesome.
guy? Yeah, I mean, he seems great.
Yeah. he's one of the first people that I really clicked with when we moved to Baltimore in whenever it was, 2002.
Okay.
My wife and I moved up here, and I guess I knew or I had met Brooks before then, but he was one of the first people that I kind of really clicked with, and he's has this amp, he's he's an incredible. I mean, he's kind of an all-rounder, just like super solid dude, really smart, really cool, really grounded, great musician, and also like really technically on point. And he designs and builds amplifiers, and he had this business where he was still has this business designing and repairing amps and things. And at one point I asked him, I think he was looking for a new space, and I was like, you should move into the front of Magpie Cage. That would be really cool. Like, what do you think? There's this whole space in front. So he moved into the old location of the studio, and then we've kind of been informal partners ever since then. We moved to the space that we're in now about 12 years ago, and he's got a lot more room, and there's a wood shop and stuff in there. So yeah, so he's just somebody that I'm like, he's just a really good friend and a really solid dude, and we have real similar musical touchstones. I think we hear a lot of things in a real similar way, and when we are not coming from the same place, I feel like we also can understand each other, like what we're talking about, even if it's not, like if he's thinking about Metallica and I'm thinking about like
Killing Joke,
Cocteau Twins, or yeah, right. Well, yeah. So there's still
when aren't we thinking of Killing Joke though, Jay? But yeah,
but most right, exactly. But Geordie Walker, pour one out for Geordie Walker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's and when Office of Future Plans was turning into because Office of Future Plans sort of started in a similar way. It was a collection of songs on my computer that I was thinking of as a solo record, but I was embarrassed to, like, at that point I was kind of like, solo record? Who do you think you are? Like, nobody, like, don't,
sure, whatever
what are you even trying to do here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it was, then Darren learned the songs, and Gordon sort of came into the picture, and Brooks was in the picture, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, now it's a band. I understand this much better. Right. But that was when, that band was various factors. That band was never going to sort of go and be a Road Warrior touring operation. It was just going to be a project that could play locally and maybe go out of town occasionally. And so, I kind of roped Brooks into that, and then he's sort of been in that role ever since. And when Jawbox was sort of forced to shut down the reunion stuff because of the pandemic, then it seemed like we were going to be able to start going back and doing more of the things that we wanted to do when things started opening up. We were like, okay, maybe we can start doing some stuff in 2022. At that point, Bill was in Vermont and, had young children, and was kind of like, 2019 was great. Let's just put a pin in that. I can walk away from that feeling like I did everything I wanted to do. Right. But, with his blessing, that he was like, you guys want to do more? That's awesome. Find somebody great to fill the spot and do it with my blessing. And so Brooks was kind of the only logical choice.
The only real option as far as, because the thing, because bands are like alchemy, right? Like, it's if you if you do too much of one thing or not enough of another, like, it's going to ruin the whole thing. And he seems like he slots very nicely into the whole Jawbox world.
Yeah, it was pretty seamless, and it was kind of wild to have. It's weird to be thinking about the idea of new blood, in just the whole kind of, in every way.
Yeah,
it's kind of
sure,
weird.
Totally,
but, But it did do a thing. It definitely, it's like, oh, there's this new piece that, is
even though it's someone you have played with for like whatever 10, 15 years, however long it's been. Then but you're thinking about that music and that collaboration and that interaction differently than like, oh no, this is a thing that it's a different thing entirely. And so it's almost like it's not a one-for-one representation because they're very different dudes, right? They're different players.
Yeah. But it was interesting too, because he was he's real, he was real serious about getting it right.
Right.
And then it's, when you step into an existing band and you're sort of learning, like Bill's such an idiosyncratic writer and player. So I feel like, Brooks and I talked about it a lot. He was like, I'm learning to think about the guitar in a way that is just not natural to me. And, to some extent it was like that for me when we were starting up the reunion. I was relearning the old songs. I was kind of like, who wrote this? Like monkey's paw, like craziness that I'm trying to, why did I even do that way? And then it's funny when you sort of absorb that. It's almost like, if in my case, it was like making peace with my younger self. I was like, you know what? You weren't such an asshole. Actually, you came up with some cool shit, and I think with, I think it was an interesting exercise for Brooks, but also because he was kind of a fan of the band too. So
of course.
he was very respectful, and it was cool sometimes because he would be like working out a part and he'd be like, well, I listened to the record and on the record it's this way, but I listened to this live recording and on the live recording it's this other way. And I was like, several times I would have to be like, yeah, well, when we were relearning the songs, Bill was like, I don't remember what I played. I'm just going to make something up. And pretty much every time that would happen when we were getting the old songs back together, it was like, yeah, do the thing that you would do now. Unless it just sounds totally wrong, which it never ended up, it's like you would sort of be in that spirit and do the thing you're going to do now. It kind of feels right. So it's
a living entity, right? So that makes sense that there would be change. It'd be like a living. I mean, I think of a lot of my favorite bands. Like songs will evolve. Songs will change.
Yeah.
Like it's not how it sounds like on the record. Like, oh, okay, well, we do it like this now. Okay.
Yeah, I actually have come to really, really love that. I thought like it was weird. I remember because, like I really love Failure, for example. It was a super important band to me. And I remember going to see them. I can't remember when it was, but it was before the pandemic, but it was I think it might've been the first tour where they didn't have amps, right? They were just using the PA bins on it, right?
Yeah,
it was all modeling amps and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Tone heresy for some people, by the way. People were, what?
Well, it was a phenomenal show, and I love them very much, and I salute them and I applaud them. But I have to say that my favorite thing about the show was when the drummer would be loose. When it wasn't like those couple moments where it's like, oh, he's kind of dragging a fill or something feels a little uneven. I was like, oh, thank God, human beings.
Humans are playing this music because they're so articulated and composed and layered, and there's
everything really was note perfect. And same thing when seeing Killing Joke, who I idolize, I like worship this band, and I sort of had this thing that I was like, they're not humans. In my mind,
it's almost too perfect or something. Yeah.
But then I saw them play, and it was kind of messy in a way that I thought was just beautiful. I was like, no, that's people. That's people. It was beautiful. I thought it was fantastic. Like Jazz Coleman's a little bit off key, and he's kind of putting his finger in his ear to sort of try and get his pitch. And I was like,
oh, they're humans.
Yeah, it was great. Right? It made it a million times better. And then there's also just the more conscious things like John Cale, who's another like huge hero of mine, every time he would go out on tour, like there's all these live recordings and live versions of John Cale songs, and every band that he would bring with him, every time he would work with different people, you can really hear that you can almost hear him saying to them, like, it's like, the song the song can take it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This song is strong enough in its essence that you should just we should do what's right for us in this moment. And we're still playing the same song. So there's like all these different versions that it's still that song, whatever song it might be.
Yeah. Maybe it's slower. Maybe it's faster. Maybe this part kind of goes cattywampus.
Right. Something with crazy electronics or something that's real stripped down and like rock and roll or whatever, but it's always the same tune. So I just think that's fucking great. Cause it's like you said, it's an organic thing. It's a living thing.
It just reminds me, like the first time I ever saw Devo play live, especially because I love Devo, and like all the records. Obviously, there's a certain just locked in, mechanic to it. But like you see it live, it's like, oh no, these are definitely, there's interjections, like stuff changes. Like it's not like they're sloppy or loose, far from it. But like, no, these are humans playing this, and in a way that you get something different out of that than you do from like people playing the laptop. you know, like you get.
Well, although it is amazing when you see someone using that kind of gear, like those sort of the like, you know, because I feel like I've seen people using digital technology, using laptops and iPads and samplers and things in a like super loose and musical way, and I'm always like astonished. It's super blows my mind.
Well, because it's almost like it's working against the nature of the thing, so it's all the more astonishing because of that. It's you know, otherwise it's going to be the same no matter what every time, and that isn't necessarily a desired outcome if you're trying to make something that's a live experience.
Right. That's. I mean, I think like there's also like a lot of my experience playing live is just like being real concerned about just executing. You know, like hitting all the marks.
Right.
And the other thing, the thing that is really beautiful that's beyond that is the feeling of like actually being present and making music, you know, when you're like on stage with the people that you're with and you feel that something is happening that's beyond just like, that was correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but that's an incredible point, because especially when you're in a position where you're thinking about this music and you're thinking about, part A, part B, transition C, you know, like it's almost like math equations or something along those lines. And then when you're doing it, it's like, no, there's a physicality to the experience of like, oh, we are playing music. Right. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like, and then it hits different. Like it hits like in the limbic system somewhere somehow when you're doing it. And it's, which is fascinating, because when you end up in a situation, if you think about your typical, or what people think of, I should say, as like the typical band thing. Oh, these are these people. They get together in this room, you know, once a week or twice a week, whatever. And then they make these songs, they go out on tour, then they record them, et cetera, like, you know, the standard way. Well, that's not the only model though. So it's the other way around, where it's like, you know, you get these fully composed songs that have a sound, they have a heart, they've got a body, they got a nervous system. But when you play it live, like something different comes out of it. Yeah. And that's the playing music part of it.
Yeah.
I had Ian Mackay on once, and like he mentioned playing music, and like I forced him to like define what he thought that meant, and I thought that was an interesting distinction.
Mm-hmm.
But no, because it feels like seeing the J. Robbins band, I was like, oh yeah, there's some dudes playing some cool tunes. They are playing music up there, and it is great. You know, and that's good. That's the goal.
Oof, thank goodness.
It doesn't just sound like, you know, I don't know, like a recital or something along those lines, right? There's an energy to it. Right. There's a feel to it.
Well, no, but and then also like sometimes you're playing in these kind of like in a context where you're kind of hanging on for dear life because things sound weird, or weird shit is happening, or, you know, whatever it might be, you know, things are breaking down as they always do, or, you know, like, you know, or whatever. If you're like me, I got 2 left feet, you know, you might literally be like tripping yourself and falling over into the drum set, you know, like a clown. But
you're just hoping it'll be a little more Starship Enterprise than Battlestar Galactica, right?
Right. Then no, I'm thinking more like Dark Star, right? Like, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Depending on your metric. No, but it occurred to me too, seeing it live, like Gordon being there, right? Like Gordon as an auxiliary player, like, you know, doing like the cello, doing like really cool, like fills it out in a way that it hits a little different than just your average rock band, and brings out like the aspects. And I hate to say, I hate it for it to be musical shorthand to talk about it this way, but it feels like it brings out some of the strength of the composition by having something that's not a traditional rock instrument and play.
That's awesome. You know, that's wonderful. I mean, you know, but then the other thing about Gordon is like, it's not that it's because after playing with him for so long, it's not even about. I mean, the cello is an amazing sound, and like, I'm always sort of trying to push him to make the cello sound weirder, but
Right,
like,
sure, yeah.
like sonically weirder. But I mean, in terms of his approach to it, it's plenty weird and also always appropriate, but he always brings something new that you didn't if he brings something to a song, you're always like, wow, I didn't really imagine that in the song, but now I can't imagine the song without it. He's got like a super high success rate of just doing that. And it just comes out of him,
Right.
like, and but he also will do that on guitar. Like I don't think it's not really so much about the particular instrument even. I just think it's like
His sensibility.
his brain. Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. I mean, there's something to be said for those kinds of players, and
I think there's a lot to be said for Gordon's brain.
definitely, yeah. I mean, sure, yeah, we celebrate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even thinking back to the Jawbox on cello record, right? Like the
which is how I made his acquaintance, which he did initially as a school project. Like when we first met him in Jawbox, he gave us a tape that was like a fulfillment of an assignment, a music program assignment, to arrange and record this, like an early version of that. And I think it kind of knocked us all on our ass. We were like, really? No way.
Kind of a mind blower, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, whoa. Like did it make you like,
well, but if you like Jawbox on cello, you should hear Chavez on cello.
what?
Because he's been working on that for a while, and it's pretty badass.
Yes, please. Yes. That sounds fantastic.
It's super good. Yeah.
Wow. I would be really intrigued to hear him interpret some of that kind of non-Euclidean geometry guitar riff stuff that he does.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a fun little exclusive. So,
Yeah. I hope I didn't scoop him. I hope I didn't, spoiler alert. But
Look,
he's been working on it for a while. It's like, and every time I've heard a little bit of it, I'm just like,
that's
get this thing out.
Yeah, that's some building excitement, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he's a guy that seems like he has a great sensibility that fits nicely with the assignment, right? like with like what you guys are trying to do, like, and there's an ease without it sounding like it's other things are forced or anything. There's an ease to this outfit. It seems like everybody, like, there's not any. Sometimes the jarring conflicts in bands can be fantastic, like it can make
right.
It
contributes to the energy or whatever. But
right.
I mean, that's also. I mean, maybe that's also sort of a. I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's. I mean, I'm very fortunate that these are the people I get to play with, and make stuff with.
Well, I do want to.
I mean, it's weird too. The new, like the Basilisk, Gordon's not on it very much because a lot of the songs were kind of almost like the brief for the songs,
right,
was to be either a power trio or a totally abstract electronic soundscape kind of thing, right? And to not have lots of layers with counterpoint, so
well, he's got a really cool cello part on Last War. I mean, that's
yeah, he's got, right. I mean, there's the things that he did play on, he elevated them for sure.
Well, I do want to get into Basilisk since that's a new one, but since Zach brought it to our attention that it's the Roan Special Sweetheart anniversary, I haven't had the chance to talk to you about like even like revisiting that stuff back when Bill was still playing, let alone since then. So, again, was there things that you found with playing those songs again that the rediscovery of like what your older what your older self was doing and maybe why you were doing that. Was there any discovery process with that? And the reason why I asked that is I feel like there were songs that hit different when I saw you play now, or not now, I guess it was 5 years ago, but like now versus then. Peace and love. Anyway,
now can have a 5-year range.
It's now. Everything is now. We live in the constant present tense.
Yeah.
But I know like there were some songs that I felt kind of popped that in a different way, for lack of a better term, as a listener that was fascinating to me. We're like, wow, it's cool that they dug into that differently somehow.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we took it pretty seriously. And then that's why there were certain songs that we knew that we wouldn't play, because it's like, there's just, I mean, for me, I'm not going to be able to name them off the top of my head, but I know there are some lyrics that I wrote when I was, 22 or whatever, that I'm just like, I can't sing that. It's not, And what was cool is going back to some of them that I might have, in the intervening time, I sort of developed this attitude about like, that was me trying to figure some shit out when I was younger and it didn't really land and it's not that good or whatever. And then going back to it and finding that I actually could bring something from the present to it and kind of see into what I was trying to do back then and be like, no, actually there's value in this. There's actually more depth here than I gave myself credit for, at least to the extent that I could sing it and not feel like I'm dressing up as a 22-year-old,
Right. 22
you know what I mean?
Cosplay. No.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about that a little bit. Was it Static? We talked about that a little bit, about just kind of like hitting like a different approach with it, because
well, Static's a different thing, because I sort of took ownership of that song for a while, because I was like we probably talked about this before, like
probably
when it was initially written, it was like I kind of chickened out, like I felt like it was a missed opportunity. Yes, it had like a real serious subject matter. It was really personal. I wrote the song, and then I kind of got scared and was like, we arranged it collectively. I didn't sort of take a stand about, I kind of pulled back from from really putting my cards on the table in any way in that song. And in at least from my perspective, right? Like, I'm like, this song is about my sister kind of divorcing my family and this super serious rift, and how did I feel about it? And also musically, it was like the first attempt to write, it was super influenced by the first Lemonhead single, actually. I remember hearing Glad I Don't Know and being like, look at that. It's kind of this restless thing, but it's real simple. And it's just all about how the melody moves against the changes. And I was like, that's the way to write a song. That's fucking great. And so, it was, all those things were in the mix. And then I let the band kind of take it home, and I let the lyrics remain too vague, because at that time I was worried about being too clearly understood. And so at a certain point I was like, well, I kind of feel like this is the first real song this is the first real song I ever wrote. I really feel like something real was in here, and I'm going to finish it the way it should have been finished, is how I felt. So we did like there's a version of it on my Bandcamp that's that I recorded with Pete. That is the arrangement that Jawbox now plays.
Right. Yeah.
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 So, and
I think that might have been new last time we talked, by the way, if I remember correctly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a long time ago. But so that's, so that was a pretty extreme example of just saying like, here's what this song wanted to be and should have been, and now this is what it is, and but then a lot of the other stuff was just like literally just kind of listening to the record and kind of relearning parts and going, really, that's just an E?
What that is?
Like, there's a lot of E going on here, but and I mean, I think for Zach, like physically, everybody being older, that was a factor. And but I think we're also, because we were older, we were able to listen to each other more and be more articulate as we were trying to figure out how to do things. So I think that we were able to make pieces that used to used to fit together awkwardly that we just kind of got through by sheer force, brute force of like making it work. I think we were able to actually play them with more finesse and more kind of more like what, I mean, for me, for sure now, more like what I want, what I feel like a band should be, like a unity,
What do you want? What do you want to get out of it? Sure. And it also occurs to me too, again, the time of this recording that we're talking, that Static. There's that split with Tar.
Yeah.
The Statics, the Statics.
Yeah, their Static is a great song. Love that song.
And you're playing with Deep Tunnel Project, which is Mike and John, great band.
Yes,
which I haven't seen.
I adore them.
Haven't seen them since Caterpillar 2022, actually. But I'm full disclosure, probably going to come down for that Chicago show. So
awesome, excellent.
We'll see. But plenty of time for things to fall apart. But I'll probably come down.
I'm so looking forward to that show with between them and Alan Epley's solo project band.
Yes,
that's like a dream show. I'm really, really excited about it.
That should be really great. Also, before we get to another stuff, I had Scott McDonald on. That Arc Welder album's great,
isn't it?
It's so.
Good.
It's
not Arc Welder's not going to make a bad record.
Yeah, how are they?
Like, right?
Yeah, what did you think this is going to be? Well, that's what it is, But no, I mean, I mean,
for me, I was like over the moon, right? When they
sure.
when they emailed me and they were asking about mixing it, and it was super cool. I mean, like, I'm such a fan.
They're so good.
Like a crazy, yeah. I'm like they're like the band that in the like it's proof that I'm living in the wrong timeline, because in the timeline that I where things are correct, they would just be huge.
They'd be like as big as Nirvana or something, right? Yeah, I mean, like, and it always just occurs to me, like, those guys are just like so blasé, not blasé, but like egoless about.
Right, they're just like
band.
The most chilled, like understated dudes that ever were, But so it was awesome for me to get an email from them and be like, would you be interested in doing some mixing? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think for me. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And at that, initially they were talking about maybe a few different people would mix it. And then it seemed like everything really clicked, and I ended up mixing the whole thing. And it just is one of the great, super highlights of my, anytime, like you go, you have it's such a rare opportunity to go from like admiring someone or something or some art from a distance, and then later suddenly you find that you're intimately involved with it, and it's like, and like what a bunch of classic dudes. They're just I love that record. I'm so happy that they're doing things again.
The only other time I can think of a match between like the band that made as much sense was when you did the Room Runner stuff, which I think we talked about. Room Runner,
great band.
God damn, that was a great band.
Yeah.
Like it made me mad that people like, why are you not paying attention to Room Runner? This is great.
Yeah, that was such a classic situation. Now, with benefit of hindsight, like a something so exceptional, and you see it, and it's like wow, and then it almost has a moment, and then the moment doesn't happen. It
breaks your heart every time, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that far too much, and that's I think as time has gone on, that's why I'm even more deeply appreciative when stuff kind of does get over a little more.
You've heard Dosser, right?
No.
Dosser is Brett, the drummer of Room Runner.
Yeah.
Has a band called Dosser that he plays guitar in. That's very, very good.
That's it. Look, based on who's involved, I'm already in. I'll check that. How do you spell it? DAWSER?
DOSSER.
Oh, I was way off. Okay, sweet. I will check that out. Absolutely. Wait, that's. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I don't know what I got into, but I was like Norwegian goth post punk. No, that's not it. It could be though. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to say.
I don't think Dosser's particularly goth, but maybe maybe if you ask them, they would give you a different answer.
So how do you feel? So Jawbox with Brooks now. This is you're playing, you're doing stuff. I know there's a lot of schedules to wrangle.
Well, I mean, the situation with Jawbox right now is that it's not. It's pretty dormant, basically.
Right.
Because we had our there were certain things we had wanted to do when we got together in 2019, and then the pandemic kind of squashed them, and then things opened up again. And the big one was playing at Primavera Sound, which we did in 2022.
Right. Yeah, with Tropical Fuckstorm and
and
all them, right?
Yeah, like a total. I mean, was an incredible experience. And so there were a few things that were sort of on the list that we didn't get to do and that we were able to do. And then we checked all those things off the list, and we're kind of like, okay, what's next? And at that point, it sort of all got a little bit more real, where, the fact is Zach has is running a business in Brooklyn. He's, he runs a shop, a stationery shop in Brooklyn. And that is a full-time.
It's hard to get away from that.
Yeah. It's like an all-in kind
business,
of commitment. Yeah. And, Brooks is in War on Women. He's running his shop. I have the studio. Kim is an educator. Like she's, everybody has all these demands on their time. And we kind of figured out that if we were going to, the next logical thing for Jawbox to do is write new material. Mm-hmm. And we figured out that we can only do that collaboratively, if it's like everybody's
all in
from the get-go. Yeah, Jawbox is not a band. It seems as if we've decided that going forward, Jawbox is not a band where I can bring a song and everybody learns the song. And it sort of never was before. It was like sometimes I would bring a song and I would feel lucky. Like I would be like, it would go through the whole process and I'd be like, oh, look at that. It emerged pretty much exactly like I imagined it when I brought it. But
it's not an assured thing that's going to be.
No. Yeah. And a lot of our stuff was much more a matter of like people bringing fragments, and a lot of it was written around Zach's beats, and the beats would come first and then we'd plug things in around that. So, and that's, just because, I mean, particularly like that's the way Zach wants to write, is collaboratively. Mm-hmm. And I think that is cool and great, but I think also it requires that we all have the time and energy and be in the same place and get in the
headspace to do it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, because it is like going up the river, and like sometimes you get lost and you're lucky to just make it back to your base camp, kind of deal. So
right, sure.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're pulling the boat over the hill like Fitzcarraldo,
Exactly. So we could cook up. I'm here for whatever metaphors you want to develop, but
exactly. It's like going into the zone and Stalker. Okay, it's enough.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like it's sort of a never say never situation. But I mean, in the meantime, knowing that I'm, that we've sort of now have this tacit agreement that it's not going to be the kind of band where I show up with a song and everybody fleshes out the details.
Right. Hey guys, here's what I came up with. It goes like this. Yeah.
Right. The fact is I have a lot of songs and I like working that way, and I want to finish them and put them in front of people. And that's kind of where my energy is. And Zach has his project, New Freedom Sound, which is very much in the mold of, it's very informed by a lot of different kinds of music that really inspire him. And it is a super collaborative project, and like wildly different from Jawbox, although you can certainly hear that it's him, in the
He's
rhythms.
Pretty distinctive drummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a good way. I mean, that's not a bad
Oh
thing,
yeah.
But...
So, I mean, I think we'll figure it out, or perhaps we won't. I don't know. But, we're talking about doing some stuff later in the year, playing some shows, and, it's definitely still fun, and the vibe is strong. It's, it's just like,
And
it's
there's no
like
pressure, right? There's no pressure to do it. It's just like, all right, if
Right.
you do something, it should be because you want to do it, not because
right. And that's also the thing. It's like there was a certain amount of pressure of like, oh, we should be writing blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
it's just not. That's it has to be fun, and that's it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
It's rare for truly inspired stuff to come from that kind of pressure,
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
It's hey, be creative. Oh, what? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sure.
I mean, it works for some people.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's no. I mean, it's good to know that it's not a closed door because again, with all of the whatever in the world, like it's that's never a sure thing. Like I mean, when I went and saw you guys play because I was like, I might not get the chance for this to happen again. So like, I'm going to take the time to do this, even though it's going to be kind of like a weird thing where I'm going to be in the van with all our gear.
What did you do? You like run out every 15 minutes and just
I actually paid for a garage because I was like, I'm not going to take the chance on this. I need somewhere I'm going to back it up to the wall.
Yeah, back it up to the wall. Yep.
Exactly. True heads know.
Get your packing blankets out. Yep.
Oh, you know the vibes.
Yep.
But yeah, like by nature of it being, look, we don't need to name them. They're bands that have overstayed their welcome. When they came back, where it's like, all right, it's good. Everybody's having a good time, but at a certain point, like if it becomes like punching the clock or something, then maybe the magic kind of goes away. And there's always the idea of like, okay, if a band is a band, one of the things a band does is write songs. Otherwise, it's a Vegas act. It's a nostalgia act, and like,
right.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, especially when it's presented with I mean, I would use the word love with like the kind of love that the Impartial Overview tour was. That again, had a ton of people that never got to see the band in the first place. And that's
it was
wonderful.
It was super. Like the enthusiasm around the tour was really wonderful. I mean, it was a super cool experience.
So, I mean, the fact that the door just isn't closed at all is, so you're saying there's a chance of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my bottom line is just like generally, I just want creativity to go forward.
Right.
However, it's going to happen for whomever, if it's like, if we decide that Jawbox is the way that is going to create something that's fulfilling for everybody, for the four of us, then that's going to be awesome. If Jawbox doesn't do anything else, the four of us will certainly carry on creating things. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
individually, and the main thing is just like to keep the whatever, to keep going in some capacity. Not for the band specifically, but just people writ large, like creators to create.
It's a good thing for creators to do. Speaking of creations, do you mind kind of going through in detail on Basilisk? It's I've been doing a thing when there's new releases where we kind of go through song by song, and you can like say a little something about each one, like
okay,
where the title came from, some of the production, lyrics, or whatever floats your boat. There's no wrong.
Okay, I'll try and do it quick fire as best I can.
Doesn't be quick. It's the internet, Jay. Come on, as long as you want.
Content.
People don't come to this show because they want quick hits. People come to this show because of the esoteric film references and for the long form content. All right, so I'm gonna just throw up the Bandcamp here because that is production values. People.
Let's go look at that.
Automaticity.
Automaticity.
Yes,
yeah.
Automaticity. Let's start with that one.
So automaticity is the it's the condition of like the famous example is like, when you're driving a car, are you really driving? Are you fully engaged in the, are you present in all of the things that are involved in that. No, you're not. It's how much of it is absorbed and, becomes just a physical and mental habit, right? So it's not specifically, that's just an example, right? But so automaticity is just about mostly really about needing to be present, wanting to remember to be present, and a little bit about the feeling that time is finite, so you got to just fucking do it. Like, show up is basically what that song is about.
I feel that big time. Well, that's was there, kickoff song on the record. Was that kind of something you knew, or did you figure that out?
No,
later?
I didn't maybe, I don't know. That was probably the first song that, right? No, that's not true. It wasn't the first song, like when, the songs were sort of not written in a, same was true for the first record, that they weren't sort of written specifically to be, to take this space in this record or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was just like writing a lot of songs and a lot of stuff coming out, and then being like, how do they fit together?
And then afterwards, put the puzzle together.
Yeah. And it seemed like Automaticity was always going to would probably be the first song, though. After a bunch of these songs started coming together, I was still like, that is good it's good as a, like, the gateway song, the words.
It's the gateway drug of songs. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Be careful. You're going to get into some just really serious composition, some hard composition, if you get into this gateway song.
But written under the influence of listening to a lot of Sparks. Like, I had a real Sparks moment.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I had a like 2 or 3 month long. All I want to listen to is Sparks.
One of my favorites.
Jag. Yeah.
One of my. I regularly hassle their people about coming on this show, and
oh my God, that would be a coup. That would rule.
That would be a high watermark as far as I'm concerned, but hasn't happened yet. But we'll see. We'll see. So you're speaking my language when you say that. That's what I'm saying.
Fucking amazing, but like.
When I had Stephen McDonald on, from Cross Melvins, very distinguished player of his own. I think I pressed him on like Sparks stuff for like 10 minutes because he was played in their live band for a while.
Right.
And I was like, tell me all the Sparks stuff. And I've also pestered him about it in person too. But anyway, whatever. I like to pester people, apparently. That's the takeaway. Exquisite Corpse is the second one.
Exquisite Corpse is a surrealist game. It's the one, I bet you've played it, right? The one where the paper's folded in 3 and each person draws a part of a body, like I draw the head and you can't see what I'm drawing, and then I fold it over and pass it to you, and you draw the middle without knowing what the head looked like, and you pass it to the next person and they draw the legs without knowing what the rest of it looks like. And then you unfold the paper and you go, what the fuck?
It looks like Freaks from Todd Browning. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's a little bit about, it started as a song about like what we were talking about when you have a collaboration, especially the kind of collaboration you might have as a younger person in a band where people are just jamming ideas together and maybe they don't, it's sort of about more broadly about, are we really hearing each other? Not necessarily even in the context of a band, but sure. Is like, I'm talking to you, are we really connecting kind of deal? But then it sort of became more about just kind of thinking about things like surrealist games, and that, because this is the thing about the surrealists is like, they actually really prize that kind of collaboration where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And then you sort of tie it all, when it all comes out at the end, it's like, where did it come from? It came from this third place that neither person was conscious of, what the other, it's some new unconscious thing. And a lot of that, they actually believed in the value of a lot of that, so that's sort of where it ended up coming from.
Well, yeah, that line's a plot made entirely of twists. I like that.
Yeah.
That's it's funny. I watched Black Moon last night.
I don't know it.
Louis, as a Molly, I don't know how you
okay.
say his name, but My Dinner with Andre is like
yeah,
his big, right? Super surrealist kind of post-apocalyptic Alice in Wonderland, just like real.
Wow, I've never heard of that. I'm gonna write it down.
It's good. It's good. But it is definitely bizarre. Like it's just a bizarre movie. So it's funny that you mentioned that because that was like very fresh in mind. I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, wow, that was crazy. That was a crazy movie.
Well, okay, I'm writing. I gotta find my cool things list and I'll write it.
Well, it also occurs to me if they ever make a board game out of it, like if this is the perfect theme song. Exquisite Corpse is the name of the game. You know, that's which you say the first line. That's a great theme song. Gets right to the point. But we're selling board games here, Jay.
All right, whatever. You know, we got to diversify. But I don't know. I just the other big landmark in this song for me is that I knew that I wanted it to have a guitar solo. Which is never in the past. It's sort of it's another thing. It's like saying solo records where I'm kind of like guitar solo, really, you know. And I'm not one to play. I mean, there have been guitar breaks, and I played what really you have to call it a solo. But I hate thinking that it's a solo, and I'm not that kind of guitar player. But so I was like, I'm not going to play a solo in this. That's going to feel really wrong. Who do I know that could play a really badass guitar solo? I wonder if John Haggerty would do it. And so I contacted John, because John's, you know, he's got incredible taste, and he's like a super, like, he can be this super, you know, minimal, monolithic, like just kind of power guitarist, but secretly he has, you know, fingers of fire. Like he can unleash the beast side. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I contacted him and he was into the idea. So I got John to record a guitar solo, which was just like, you know, really like I really look up to John Haggerty. I've always, you know, I mean, he's John Haggerty.
Come on. Yeah.
So, so that was super
Legend.
cool. Yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah. Nice Man Ray reference, by the way. It's good.
Yeah.
Good to have a Man Ray reference. Appreciated that. I knew you put that in for me. So, Last War is the next one.
Last War is Last War was written entirely on software synths as a kind of a, like the version. If I played you the original demo of that song, it's almost like trying to like imitate like Apparat or Moderat or something.
Oh,
like,
wow, cool.
Like it's in a totally different realm, which was something that I was trying to do too, like to get away from sort of habits of playing guitar and get back to just thinking about music as music, you know?
Right.
So I had this demo that is basically that song. It didn't have drums. It had sort of this kind of weird skittery, chopped up rhythm. And I really, really liked it. And then I thought, no one is ever going to hear this, and I'm never going to put it in front of anybody in this form. I mean, maybe I would put it out on Bandcamp or what. And I was like, what would it be like if this was a band song? You know, if the bass line was on a bass, if all these sort of keyboard parts translated to guitar. And it was cool. It made me play guitar in some different ways than I'm used to. And then there was this open space for Darren to write a drum part, you know, that turned out really awesome, because that's, you know, his imagination is boundless. And the lyric is just about that, you know, that phrase, like your generals are always fighting the last war. And I thought, I mean, it's basically, it sounds really corny to say that it's came out of the January 6th thing, but it obviously did. And the idea that we had this, you know, I was watching this insurrection unfold in real time, and then, you know, it was all kind of dying down and people were sorting through the mess and trying to figure out what to do next. And then half of the government is now composed of people who wanted to destroy the government.
Right.
And the other half of the government is just hoping that we can use all the same old tools to like solve the problem somehow, and that it'll just go away and we'll all kind of be back to normal where we were before.
This time it'll be a different result somehow.
Right. And it made me think of that phrase, like, oh yeah, you guys are fighting the last war. Like, whereas right in front of your face, like some really dire shit is going on, and it seems to require a much more serious response than, I mean, not that I have any answer to it, but it's just from the point of view of being like, I would like to have a future, please,
Right.
like, so that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah, and still using, attempting to use curative measures for different problems, where it's like, okay, well, why would you expect that would work? I mean,
right. I mean, it's literally just like, okay, last week you stabbed me, and this week, we're gonna like try and like, I don't know what, make dinner together and sit down and have a meal, like, no.
right.
You fucking stabbed me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of what it's, how it seems to me. So anyway,
I like a carnival for carnivores is that's a nice phrase. Plays nicely in the tongue. And
I felt like it was low hanging fruit, but it felt good to sing. It felt like the right thing to sing. So it doesn't totally make sense either, but it's sort of, and yet it does. It's fine.
Yeah. That's the great thing about lyrics, isn't it?
You said it.
Gasoline Rainbows is next.
Gasoline Rainbows is another one that started as a sort of synthy piece and then moved over to guitars. And that one's much more sort of automatic writing type of lyric thing. But I mean, it ended up just being about largely about seeing what beauty you can find in the way that things are, the things are irreparably decaying. You still have to find some kind of beauty somewhere. That was my thought about Gasoline Rainbows. So, and then there's also a sort of a like, I mean, I'm just kind of freaking out about a out of control world really in that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, understandable,
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the end. It's the next one.
Not the end is just self-evident. I mean, that's what it really is about. It's about the feeling that, yeah, I mean, it's about the fact that it isn't, when you sort of get as I often have done, you kind of get a feeling that things are coming to a certain doom and there's going to be an end, whether you're talking about like the sort of apocalyptic feeling, or just the feeling like, oh shit, I'm in a hole and things can't get any worse. It's done, but the fact is there is going to be another day. Like it's actually not, things don't just wrap up and then they're done and they're tied with a nice bow around them.
Right.
For better or worse, there's going to be a next step, there's going to be another day will dawn kind of thing. And so that's all that song is really about. And it's another song that started on keyboard but stayed on keyboard. And then there's a really amazing pedal steel player, this guy Dave Hadley.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, he plays in a band called June Star. That's sort of a real low key Americana band that I've recorded a bunch. They're a super good band. And Dave is just, and he's played with some other people I've recorded too. Like, and he's played on Andy Bop's stuff a lot. Andy, I don't know if we've ever talked about him, but Andy's amazing. He's a Baltimore kind of power pop guy who's been around since the 90s. Who's just like, his shit is amazing.
You worked with him a lot, right? If I remember right?
Yeah. Andy Bop is great. I mean, real, very like Kinks influenced, but just a real, he's great. And Dave has recorded a bunch with Andy. So I knew that.
Is it kind of like Posies, kind of like that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember this now. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But anyway, so I've worked with Dave a bunch. I've known him a little bit for a very long time. And I just thought like pedal steel would be great in this song. And Dave would definitely be the person. So he agreed to do it. And it was cool because he was on tour with June Star. So Andrew, the singer of June Star, actually recorded Dave's part in a motel room
that's
somewhere
awesome.
in the Midwest, and
That's
you know,
rad.
sent files back. So that's pretty cool.
What a good use of technology, you know? It's so amazing that we could do that now. Fantastic. Old Soul.
Old Soul is the oldest musically. The music of that song was written toward the end of Office of Future Plans. I remember Office of Future Plans jamming on it, and I had a vocal melody and everything. And then I'm a real glacially slow lyric writer. I was just like, nothing was coming. Band broke up. Song was sort of on the shelf. I recorded a version of it for Unbecoming, but I didn't really love how it was going, so I abandoned it. And at some point, I sort of had it in my mind that song was. I really wanted to write a song about my son because he, particularly at the age, he reached an age. There's that like magical age where, you know, you have kids and it's like first you start out, you're just trying to make sure everything's okay for them. And then their personalities start to develop and you're trying to like sort of feed them all the cool stuff and imprint your ideas about, you know, how to look at the world and sort of help steer them toward the cool shit and hope, you know, so that they'll grow into somebody great, or, you know, you're just trying to get them to the cool place. Right.
Yeah.
And then when they get to a certain age and their personalities start to bloom, and then, this becomes a real two-way dialogue. And Callum, my son, you know, especially, you know, and there's that magical age, which is probably, you know, different for every kid, but maybe it's between like starting around 9 years old or something, 10, 11, 12. And they start to really, you know, I mean, kids are always teaching you things, but when they start to explicitly teach you something, they show you some shit that you didn't see before, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I really, I mean, he was the most important person ever in my life. Right. And I was like,
Yeah.
I want to write a song about this guy, you know, and I could not, when he died in 2020, he was 14 and a half years old. And while he was alive, I could never, I was always trying to write that song. I could never find the words to just like really be like, you know, hey, listener, whoever's listening, here's a portrait of somebody who's just fucking gonna blow your mind. Like that, I just couldn't get the words that I felt would do justice to him.
Yeah.
And you know, and then after he died, I just was like, you know, I don't know, I felt it that I just like owed it to myself I was like, what am I gonna not say something about, you know? I mean, it's weird in every context where like, you know, this record just came out and I'm like talking to people about it and I'm like, I don't know that it's appropriate to like how do I talk about this? Do I want to? I don't even know if I want to, but on the other hand, you got to talk about it. This is life, right? You have to talk about it, and
Right.
people don't talk about it. And like, but anyway,
And maybe they should, you know,
enough of my sentence fragments. But like,
no, it's heavy. It's heavy, but it's a nice.
It's incredibly heavy. But so the song was just like at least an attempt to say something about him, you know?
Right.
So it's sort of speaking to him and saying literally like, this was supposed to be your song.
Yeah. Well, it's a good one. So
thank you.
I'm glad it's there. How about A Ray of Sunlight?
Super direct rock song that is really just trying to be, I think I was trying to say that, you know, it's kind of about it's reflecting on like being in a really dark moment and remembering that like one little positive thing, you know, in this case, like the ray of sunlight, literally, that might be all that you get, right? But that also is enough. It has to be, and you have to like, that has to feed you. And like, you have to remember that that's good, you know, even if it's a small good thing, right? Like, it's worth hanging on to small good things, right?
And deep in the darkest timeline, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard relatable.
Yeah. So therapy session is underway. But anyway, but that's what that song is. And I'm, you know, and this is super, like, these are the, like, so like, if we're talking about like recording live in the studio, right? Like Exquisite Corpse, Last War, Old Soul, Ray of Sunlight, Deception Island, that's basically me, Brooks, and Darren playing the song all together. You know, maybe some things, you know, we would do a few takes, so maybe one phrase or another is pulled out of a different take, but really that's just, we played it, done. You know, and then like, now let's wait for 2 years for Jay to finish the lyrics, and then we'll, you know. But
yeah, well, that's entertainment, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
Deception Island.
Similar thing. Like this is like I never have written this way very much, and I've been, like, I'm sure I've told you before, like, I don't shut up about this. Like, I've been trying to like let go and just let things just come out instead of working them and trying to be like some kind of weird architect of the guitar or whatever that I can barely play anyway, right? You know, playing in an open tuning and just letting things kind of whoosh, letting them flow out. So Ray of Sunlight was very much written that way, and Deception Island was written that way too. Like, it kind of fell out in one, almost like in a day, like melody and everything. And the lyrics are about a recurring childhood nightmare that I had, that I was on. Literally, I mean, it literally is what it describes in the song. Like, when I was really little, I had this nightmare over and over that I was in the middle of the ocean in the Antarctic, and my family was on an ice floe, and I walked away from them, and then the ice split, and then I had to watch them drift away across the water and know that I was just like going out, like I would never see them again. They couldn't come and get me, and I couldn't go to them, and it was fucked.
That's a pretty articulate nightmare. Jesus.
It was a weird nightmare. I had it might have been from a movie that I saw. I don't know what it was, but I had once upon a time, there was one time I made myself go back to sleep, and I was able to get back into the dream, and we got rescued. And I also knew that I was trying to make myself feel better. I was like, oh, look, it all worked out great in the end. But I also was like, because you made yourself think that it's bullshit.
Because you did some lucid dreaming to kind of like, maybe we could end it this way. Yeah.
Pretty good. I mean, I don't know how old I was. I couldn't have been older than 10. Wow. So that's pretty good. I was able to pull that off at a young age. But so then Deception Island was just like, I literally was just like thinking about how to do this song. And I found that name on a map. Like, it's this tiny island in the, just between South America and Antarctica, that is literally in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, you know, well, I guess that's where you're making for, you know, like the very slender chance that you get to land, you know, you land on Deception Island. And that and the whole thing about like, if I die before I wake, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. Like, you know, the fear, that thing of if you die in a dream, you're going to die in real life, you know, all that shit's in there. So
yes, there's like a double meaning to it, right? Because first of all, I didn't realize there was an actual Deception Island. But yeah, like the deception of that you will make it to the island is like, that's.
Yeah, right, and a little bit like, oh, you're fooling yourself if you think this is all going to work out, you know.
Right. Exactly. It's the inception of deception.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. Sonder.
Sonder is the only song that was written specifically to fill a spot on the record, because I've got loads of other stuff that's like outtakes, that some of which I was really, really in love with, and just didn't feel like it would fit in the record. Mm-hmm. And But so what I ended up having was like, here are some rock band songs, here are some weird soundscapey songs. How do they work together? And nothing else. There was nothing else that was in the sweet spot, but sort of between them.
Right.
And then also I've recorded the band Locrian.
Oh yeah.
They're a really unusual band. They're in a very specific, strange place in between experimental music and extreme metal. And
right.
I've
Aren't they named after some like music theory thing?
They're named after an obscure musical mode that is like a kind of a scale that no one uses.
Yeah. So there's your clue.
Yeah, and really, really lovely dudes and super creative. And one thing I love about working with them is the way that they interact with each other and the faith that they have in each other's creativity.
Yeah.
And I would see that happen over and over again, where they would take a kernel of an idea, one person would have something and the other person would build on it, and they'd all be like, they would just know where it was going. Even if they didn't know where it was going, they have tremendous faith, right? And one of the tools that they kept falling back on, or that one of their sort of regular ways that they push the boat out, is by using granular synthesis, which is like, sort of a digital, it's basically like taking all sort of individual bits of audio and scrambling them. And, it's used a lot for creating sort of like shimmer reverbs and kind of, electronic soundscapey stuff. So they were using that a lot. Like Steven, the drummer, would, have kind of field recordings that he made, and he would put it into this granular synthesis app and kind of chop it up. And then you would have this thing that felt somehow familiar, but really alienating and weird.
Sure.
And it would be this jumping off point that they would then take into some other realm, or he would bring it to something that was more like a regular riff. It was really, really fucking cool. And I was like, I gotta get into that.
Wow,
so I was
that's a really interesting way of creating stuff. Boy.
Yeah, it just is. It's a cool tool. It's like, just kind of changing your vocabulary to kind of open up your imagination. And so I was playing around. I've been playing around with it on and off quite a bit. And so that was the beginning of that song, was just based on putting in some, it's actually a little bit, I don't feel like I should, it's a little bit from Psycho, from the soundtrack of Psycho.
Oh, cool.
It's a section of string music from the soundtrack of Psycho.
Oh, okay.
That is sort of looped back on itself and feeding back and generating these kind of weird overtones. And and this, the app then sort of made this weird rhythm, and then I built on the rhythm and programmed drums and stuff. It's the only song that Darren doesn't play drums on. It's just all me, and then kind of building on that and seeing where it wanted to go. And I really wanted it to not be like a song. I wanted it to be like a real short little interlude.
Almost.
Yeah, almost
yeah.
Like you're in the record and you go through a door and you think it's going to lead to someplace familiar, but then you're in a weird hallway. You're in like, the sort of back rooms of, suddenly you're in the back rooms, of the record, and you didn't think that was there, and you're like, oh, strange. And I wanted to build a bridge to the next song, which is Open Mind. Yeah.
No, I always like when records do that. Like, I'm a big fan of that kind of thing.
Cool. Well, it's another thing I haven't ever really done. I've never done it consciously, like explicitly. I like the first record had a piece called Kintsugi, but that was something that I just had. I'd had that for years, like sitting on a hard drive. It was just
really?
a thing I kind of, yeah. And I was like, I could put Kintsugi on this record, and it'll be like a little sort of interlude.
Yeah, it's a little breaker almost. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so Sonder was specifically to like be like, okay, we think we know where we are. Oh, but do we? And then and then it would lead to Open Mind, which is kind of an outlier song in a way, because it's the most kind of shoegazy and built up layers of bendy, twisty guitars kind of song. That was sort of supposed to be musically somewhere between like Killing Joke and Cocteau Twins, and lyrically it's about this group of people, inspired by this group of people in the 1970s in England who trepanned themselves in order to expand their consciousness.
Oh my God. So Can you explain trephination to the audience for people that don't?
It's basically drilling a hole in your head to let out the bad humors, or to open up to open up your third eye, or to let in the cosmic energy. If it's something that people have done all around the world since ancient humans. You find like old and archaeological digs all around the world. Trepanning was a thing that people did for, medical reasons, spiritual reasons, kind of you name it. And this group of people in England in the 70s, they were real devotees of this idea. They were kind of, I don't know if we would say spiritual seekers, but whatever they were. And this one woman, Amanda Fielding, whose I name in the song, she made a film called Heartbeat in the Brain that was a documentary of her trepanning herself.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she's still alive, and she actually is she runs some kind of a foundation that is basically trying to legalize psychedelics in England to for therapeutic use, for whatever use. She's like a real pro psychedelic booster. And it's interesting if you look her up, I've read interviews with her where she talks about how trepanning did change her. It did open her consciousness. She felt like a different person after she did it. She felt like a better person, and the world was wider and bigger. But she'll even cop to the fact that maybe she felt that way because there's a placebo effect from committing to something so extreme.
Yeah.
And then going through with it and surviving it, that she was just riding some wave of adrenaline and
recontextualizing the trauma to be something like an epiphany instead of just
right. I mean,
trauma.
she always believed that it was going to be an epiphany.
Yeah.
So, whether it's self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever it is. So she's quite canny about looking at it from all sorts of angles. But the fact is, she did drill a hole in her head. So, I mean, it's just fucking
which is wild. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, I can't. It's I'm going to say something really stupid, right? I'm going to liken it to the first time I got a tattoo.
Yeah.
When you make that commitment and you're like, now something is, I decided to permanently change my body. And now I put an image here, or an emblem or whatever, a symbol that is meaningful to me, and now it is going to stay with me forever. And you get done with that experience and you're kind of riding a high. I just imagine that it must be like that, but 10,000 times,
Dang. Literal open mind.
Yeah.
that's a yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's so she's Googleable. She's worth Googling. It's really fascinating. And I don't think you can see I was looking to see the whole film. You can only see a little clip of it somewhere, but it's pretty wild.
Sounds like it's worth exploring, at least from a, academic curiosity level, if nothing else. I mean, it sounds fascinating. Okay. So then, having nothing to do with trephination,
you can only ride that train for so long.
Exactly. You don't want to do a whole concept record necessarily.
No.
Dead-Eyed God is the last song of the record.
Yes, and that was written pretty early it was probably written, I probably started putting that song together in 2020. I don't know, but lyrically it's a very post-Trump, or we're not post-Trump, unfortunately, but it's very informed by ripped from the headlines, as they say. But it's also just, I mean, it was a little bit thinking about the Charlottesville thing and the people who were marching with torches, and people who were kind of really hitching their identity to this fucking empty cipher of a human being, which, I mean, just is there a more empty vessel than Donald Trump? I don't think so. Right. But but it was also trying to hopefully have a little bit of empathy too. That's just
people bleeding for someone that is deeply contemptuous of their actual existence, and
right. And
if he cares,
if you need to that badly to be led, or you need that badly to to embed yourself, to get to kind of you need to be validated for your worst impulses and to have them feel ennobled. That means you're in a fucking dark place.
Yeah.
It sucks for you, but anyway, but so that's what the lyric is about. And the music that was really kind of the beginning of me trying to see where I could go with electronic music and kind of more abstract music. And the cool thing about it was that the very first recordings that ended up on this record are Automaticity and Dead-Eyed God. And I did them.
Oh, interesting.
We did them with it's Darren and Brooks. They were Automaticity and Dead-Eyed God they existed as Pro Tools sessions, and then Darren and Brooks played to Automaticity, and then Dead-Eyed God, I was kind of took it to the floor. I was like, okay, what do you guys got anything you want to, do with this? And Darren brought a whole bunch of really cool percussion ideas to it, sort of counter rhythms, and this little gong thing that turned out to be a big signature in the song. And it was really fun to put the song together that way. Sort of, that was my dream. I had the arc of the song. I could go pick up an acoustic guitar and play you a version of the song, and it would be the song.
It would be the same thing, right? Sure.
Yeah, but this is a whole other. This turned that idea into its own little world. It was so fun, and I was really happy with how it turned out.
You got a Ex Nihilo right in there. That's a
Yeah, somebody was busting my chops for how much Latin, because there's a Deus Ex Machina in it. Too,
oh, that's right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which I think that's more known to.
And I pronounced them all wrong.
I was gonna say more known to the layman, but what am I, a Latin scholar? But the whole the Ex Nihilo, the theists especially, there's big contention in Christian theology, talking about the cosmological arguments about it, in metaphysics and stuff. Very interesting. Not anything we're going to get into right now, don't worry. But
to me, it's just as simple as saying from nothing, literally from nothing, out of nothing.
As direct of a translation as we can get. That's exactly what it is. But it's interesting. Yeah, a good use of Latin.
So wait, so you're not actually a Latin scholar?
Jay, this is going to come as a shock to you, but I
later, man.
I did not, in fact, save Latin.
I can't believe you.
I know. I've been living a lie this entire time. So there you go. That's the last song of the record. Record's Basilisk. You can go jrobbinsbandcamp.com. You can go to Discord, pick it up. My vinyl copy arrived this week, and I was like, why am I getting some from Discord? I'm like, oh, right. I bought this record. I forgot about it. It's great. It's awesome. It's a lovely package.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should say also the artwork is by this duo of artists from London who Chin Keeler and Emma Tornero, who together are Keeler Tornero, who make really amazing photo collages.
It's a cool album cover. It looks great in the the larger format.
All their shit is really worth looking at. It's whimsical and dark and cool and surprising, and it's Keeler Tornero, KeelerTornero, and they were kind enough to let me use this image for the front cover, and then they actually did a piece for me for the back cover that incorporates a selfie, but I told them to fuck it up and don't make it look like me.
Right. From that classic model, that classic story. Jay, it's been great, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy fella, and I really wanted to get you in for this record because somehow didn't make it happen for Unbecoming, and that's a shocker to me because that was one of my favorite records of the year. But
well, thank you. I appreciate it very much. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you as well, and hopefully I will see you in person next week in our current timeline.
Holy shit.
Which is crazy.
Entirely too soon. Not too soon to see you, just too soon to be going on tour. I'm like, I'm like a little bit freaking out about being ready to get out there and, have all my ducks in a row, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the first battle's fought in the mind, right? Last thing.
I'll remember that. I'm going to write that one down.
There you go. Last thing is the only canned question I ever ask people on the show. You can choose to interpret it however you like, but why do you do what you do?
I would be in pretty deep shit with myself if I didn't.
Fair.
That's all I got.
That's all you need. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer.
Yeah.
Jay, thanks so much, man. Deeply appreciate you. And
back at you.
I can't wait to see you rock some of the stuff live because I've been rocking in the house all week long. So
that's awesome. It makes me super happy. Wonderful to see you, Conan.
All right. Take care, brother.
All right. Take it easy. Wait, how do we? Oh, there we go.
There we go. Jay Robbins, everybody. What a cool guy. Let's listen to one of the songs on the record. I'll play us out with Exquisite Corpse. I don't know why I said that with that accent, but.
Exquisite Corpse is the name of the game. I'm not sure I want to play. The best intentions could all go astray on any portion of that page. It's a plot made entirely of twists. This brainchild Basilisk together in one place, but none see the same. Shattered image, broken brain. A mystery play through the eyes of memory. Drink the new wine in the deadly nightshade, giving nothing away. Exquisite corpse surges out of the grave, mismatched head and arms and legs. Every part wants to go its own way, issuing the other's praise. A mystery play through the eyes of memory. Drink the new wine, eat the deadly nightshade. Counting glass tears on a passionless face. Photogram outlines negative space, giving nothing away. Paper and pen for drawing lines. They separate what's yours from mine by design. And the game doesn't teach trust with more time. A mystery play through the eyes of memory. Drink the new wine, eat the deadly nightshade. Counting glass tears on a passionless face. Photogram outlines negative space, giving nothing away.
Exquisite Corpse. It's off Basilisk. It's by Jay Robbins. You can get that again, jrobbins.bandcamp.com, discord.com to pick that up. There's going to be some shows coming up at the time of this recording. So if you're catching this with still time to hear it, there's Columbus, Chicago, Rock Shop, Cleveland, Brooklyn, stuff like that. Yeah, check out his Bandcamp. Yeah. Oh, he's played the freaking Coliseum shows. I didn't even think of mentioning that. And freaking Tony plays in Coliseum. Stupid Conan. Anyway, the name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you so very much for listening to it. The show airs Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Streaming live on YouTube and Twitch. Podcasted later everywhere. No ads, no sponsors. No kidding. ProtonicReversal.com. Always free.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day.
But if you like the show and you want to get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/ProtonicReversal.
My farewell transmission.
Will help achieve that goal. And it's deeply appreciated. So please do that if you can.
Signing off. Sister
Thanks everyone for
all ships at sea.
liking, subscribing on your platform of choice,
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
sharing the episodes around. All that helps people discover the show, and it's just a darn nice thing to do, really.
I've got
What else? I got a few episodes coming up before I go out myself. Peter Prescott, Mission of Burma. Next.
ionize the air.
Greg Norton of Husker Du coming back, and Steve Turner of Mudhoney. That's all happening next week. What a week. Jesus Christ.
This microphone
Thanks everyone for hanging out as always.
sound into electricity.
Deeply appreciate you.
Can you hear me now?
Stay safe out there.
Out on Route 128. Dark
Check
and
you later.
lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 See in the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,